So Stalker 2 is only 4 or 5 days away now. We're so close after what's been essentially a 15-year wait. And although my excitement for the game is through the roof, having fallen in love with the original trilogy as a kid, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have any concerns for the game. Now, while I do think it will be a solid game, even if that maybe takes a couple of patches to get there, I am still concerned in a couple of areas. And so today I wanted to cover my biggest concerns for Stalker 2. Now, the first one is honestly pretty obvious, and this is to do with essentially like tech issues and overall just a shaky launch. I am concerned that this game isn't going to launch in the best state. Now, realistically, there isn't that much pointing towards that from all the stuff we've seen in terms of their promotional material and all that kind of thing. They have shown genuinely like 35 plus minutes of gameplay, and what we've seen does look very good. It doesn't look like there's frame rate issues. I couldn't see any sort of like bugs and stuff going on. And overall, it looked pretty damn polished, especially when it comes to a lot of the cutscenes and all that kind of thing. It looks like a very high quality production. And so there's nothing really glaring that's making me think this, but it's simply just the fact that the game looks so good in terms of its graphic fidelity, as well as obviously some of the adversity that the team has had to go through over there in Ukraine over the last few years that just has me a little bit nervous this game isn't going to launch all that well. I'm sure most of you guys do know by now, but for those who don't, GSC Game World, like I mentioned, they are based in Ukraine, where obviously since 2022 there has been a war going on with Russia, which it's fair to say affects quite a few things in that country. So the fact that they have been developing this game through an actual war in their own country, that does lead me to be slightly concerned about the state of the game. And don't get me wrong, that's not the biggest concern there. My biggest concern is that all of the people involved in making this game are okay. At the end of the day, the game comes secondary to the actual lives of the people making it, obviously. But in terms of talking about the game, that is just a slight concern that I have. And I think it would be probably fair enough if the game isn't in the best state because of everything that's gone on. I don't think we can expect this to be some perfectly polished AAA game despite what has happened over the last few years. Now, with the war aside though, they also didn't have a publisher backing them initially until Microsoft picked them up, I think about 3 years ago now. And on top of that, they did actually delay this game already before the war started in Ukraine. So obviously the war adds a whole different element to it. And I think for me anyway, I don't know about everyone else, but for me, it adds a lot more leniency. I'm not going to like slate them if the game launches poorly because like I said, it's kind of secondary to what's going on over there. But it's clear that there were some issues with this game already before that war even started. And so clearly the process wasn't smooth sailing beforehand. And I'm sure it has been even less smooth sailing since. Like I said, the game looks just honestly insane in terms of the graphics. It looks like photorealistic in some instances, and especially when we talk about the cutscenes and stuff. I honestly think it looks like it could be one of the best looking games that we've really ever seen so far. And so while on one hand that is awesome and that's very impressive for them to have done that, that always adds a bit of concern to me. Any game that comes out these days that looks super good, it almost just adds to my level of concern that, okay, it looks really good, but there is a good chance it's going to have performance issues and stuff, because that's kind of just how it seems to go with the majority of games that launch these days when they look that good. Now, just quickly, if you guys are new to the channel and you're interested in more Stalker 2 content, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on those notifications. There is plenty more Stalker content on the way, so make sure you don't miss out. Now, the next concern that I have, and actually the next two concerns that I have, are not really to do with the actual game itself. It's more to do with the community reaction to it, and I guess how people perceive Stalker 2. Now, one of these concerns is that I do think this game might potentially be a little bit too hardcore compared to what people are expecting. I think anyone who played the original Stalker games will know what they're in for. This is a very kind of serious and very hardcore game. Whereas those who haven't played the originals, there is a chance that those people are expecting this to be more of a like Call of Duty type shooter in terms of the gameplay and stuff. Anyway, obviously it's like an open world type of game, which is not like Call of Duty, but I am concerned a lot of people might expect this to feel a bit more like Call of Duty in terms of like that kind of arcadey type of shooter. And if that is the case, I think a lot of those people might end up being very disappointed. This game is a genuine open world survival FPS. It is not at all like Call of Duty. It's not really at all like that many other shooters that I've played. It is very, very difficult. It is kind of very realistic when it comes to the gameplay. You can only get shot a few times and you can die. And even if you get shot and you kill all the other enemies and stuff, you can actually still bleed out a few minutes later and stuff. It is a very sort of gritty, difficult type of game, and it is also rather slow at times, which I personally don't mind, but I think a lot of people who are hoping for a fast-paced, like action type of game, it just isn't really that, or at least the originals weren't anyway. Obviously we don't know with this one, maybe they've made it a bit more in line with that since it is now coming to consoles as well. But yeah, I am just a little bit concerned that a lot of people don't maybe know what they're getting into, which will maybe lead them to critique it a little bit too harshly once they play, resulting in kind of a negative impact on the overall view of the game. Now my final concern is to do with the fact that it is an Xbox exclusive. Now obviously it's on PC as well, I guess we'll say a Microsoft exclusive, but in terms of the consoles, it's only going to be on the Xbox Series X and S, and that does leave me a little bit concerned. Now I personally do not buy into the whole like console war thing. I've got a PlayStation, I've got an Xbox. I genuinely don't care about like which one's better. I love both of them and I just don't care. What I will say though, and this might sound crazy to some people, I'm not too sure, but I do genuinely believe that there is a bit of an Xbox tax when it comes to reviews, just the way people treat certain games, especially when they are exclusive. Now, I really hope that that isn't the case with this game. I hope that, you know, the reviews aren't low because it's an Xbox exclusive, but I do genuinely think that that is a somewhat common occurrence. And it's not to say that every Xbox game has been phenomenal and they all get review bombed or something, because let's be honest, a lot of the Xbox exclusives over the last probably 10 plus years now, they have not been good. So I'm not trying to say like Xbox doesn't miss and people just hate them. That's not the case at all. They've kind of earned themselves that reputation fairly, but I think now a lot of genuinely good games do come out from Xbox, and people have already kind of got a preconceived idea of the game because it is an Xbox exclusive. So I hope that's not the case with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. With that being said, it could potentially launch on PlayStation 5 at some point in the future. There's been a few rumors actually that it could be only about 3 months or so after the initial launch that it could potentially launch on PS5. Now, take that with a grain of salt. There's no real validity to those claims just yet, but I think it's fair to say that Xbox are not opposed to doing that. They've done that with a lot of games over the last year or so. And so there is still a chance that it could potentially launch on the PS5 anyway in say 3 to 6 months, maybe even 12 months down the line. On top of that too, I think the fact that it is launching day one on Game Pass, as much as that's awesome because that's actually where I'm going to pick up the game. I've been subscribed to Game Pass for so long now that I kind of want to make the most of it. But I will be honest, that also makes me a little bit nervous for the sales numbers too. And I've almost considered, and to be honest, I may still consider actually just buying the game just to actually help out with the sales numbers, because the game looks great. The dev team in Ukraine, they do deserve to make a lot of money on this game after what they've been through, and the fact that they've still kept pushing through all of that, and the fact that this game is launching day one on Game Pass, it does just make me a little bit nervous, I guess, in terms of those sales numbers. I'd really hate for this game to be one of those situations where it's a good game, but it comes out and it doesn't sell that many copies because obviously a lot of people get it through Game Pass. So it becomes kind of a flop in terms of the numbers, and then, you know, in the future they potentially get shut down or something like that. That is a slight concern that I have. As much as I absolutely love Game Pass, I do think it has some negatives in terms of that sort of stuff. And yeah, I really hope that that is not the case with S.T.A.L.K.E.R 2. But I'm keen to hear all of your thoughts. Let me know some of your own concerns about this game. I am curious to hear what other people are concerned about. But with that being said, thank you all very much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.